Hello again and welcome to another After Action report. So on Tuesday of this week I went down to the local club. Hadn't been down for a while because I'd just been using every hour that the Emperor had sent me to paint up Black Templars. But I decided to take a little break from painting the Black Templars for a bit. I've reached a milestone after 3 out of 6 squads, so I thought I'd take a little break and get some more time in with my guardsmen. After all, I haven't played a lot of games of 40k in sort of 3 weeks, and maybe a little bit rusty in places. But I decided it's time to reach a milestone with my guard in 8th edition, and that is to take a pure infantry list in 8th edition. I've been trying lots of different things. I've tried World War One style lists. I've tried tank heavy lists. I've tried a combination of both. I've tried my next thing. I want to try some mechanized lists out. I want to try some guard mech lists out. But I've tried my Arbites list out, which is all speeders and torques primes, really fast moving list. I've tried that out. I've given grenade launchers a good run now, and missile launchers and las cannons a good run now. But I decided it was time to go back to basics. Pure infantry list with a go big or go home policy attached to it. So the game was 1,000 points. I didn't know who my opponent was going to be. It was a pickup game. Essentially what had happened is the sort of club leader had said, right, everyone come down with 1,000 points and we'll make sure that everyone gets the game. And if you play quickly, you can have it. We can do like a round robin, almost like a mini event. I only had time for one game though, because my first opponent was a Death Korp of Krieg player, so you've got Krieg guard. That's always going to take a long time. Although we did manage to complete that game in 2.5 hours, and we were really joking around and stuff. We weren't rushing things. But anyway, so I decided to take a quite symmetrical list, sort of an adaptation of my modular list, kind of like a modular infantry list. So I took 2 blobs of 30 conscripts, 2 squads of infantry with las cannon and plasma gun, 2 squads of veterans with las cannon and triple plasma gun, and then I took 2 5-man scion squads with double melter, 2 scion command squads with 4 plasma in each, and then I took, for my HQ choices, I had 2 Tempesta primes, 2 company commanders, and then for elites, they weren't HQ, just 2 regular commissars. That was it. Essentially, I made a 500 point list and then times it by 2. The reason I took this list is twofold. Number 1, I wanted to try out foot-slogging veterans. Number 2, I wanted to try out scions. And number 3, this was potentially my list that I'm going to use in the upcoming Trios tournament, where some of my games in that tournament will be doubles games where I have 1,000 points. And the restrictions in that tournament are you can't have any of the same unit more than 3 times. So I can only have 3 infantry squads, I can only have 3 veteran squads, 3 scion squads, 3 conscript squads. I can only take 3s of things. So at first that kind of bummed me out because I wanted to take lots and lots of infantry squads. But after using this list, I have to say it worked really, really well. It was really good having that mix of ballistic skills, ballistic skill 5 plus, ballistic skill 4 plus, ballistic skill 3 plus. The list was very, very powerful. So, on to the battle itself. Well, what did my opponent have? My opponent was using a pure Death Korp of Krieg army. And it was kind of fluffy, but also competitive. It was fluffy yet competitive. It was just a very good Krieg list. So we had a Lemurus Conqueror with Conqueror Battle Cannon and Storm Bolter and Hull Las Cannon. He had a Hellhound with Hull Heavy Flamer. He had a Earthshaker Carriage, so a sort of a mobile Basilisk. He had a quartermaster, the one that gives him the medic rule, and he had a commander, a normal commander, and he had a commander on horse as well. And I'm trying to think what else he had. 3 squads of infantry, each one with the flamer, and the sergeant with the las rifle. And a squad of grenadiers with some plasma guns in it, and sergeant with the las rifle. And also 3 squads of Death Riders. 3 squads of 5 Death Riders. I think that was his whole list. Roughly off the top of my head, that was his list. So very interesting, because we both had he had 4 units that he could put in reserve. I had 6 units that I could put in reserve. He had quite a lot of infantry. He was bringing 40 to 50 infantry, all in 40. He had basically roughly he had 50 infantry, and then 15 cavalry, 2 tanks, and then some artillery support. It's quite a nice balanced list. And obviously I had like 120 infantry roughly. So it was my mass numbers versus his decent amount of numbers, plus some heavy support. And the battle was not saying my opponent didn't play well, but the battle was a massacre. My waves of infantry just backed up with constantly overcharging plasma, just tore him apart. My opponent brought his cavalry on, and he thought he was kind of unlucky, but I thought it was statistical. He brought 3 units of cavalry on and only made 1 9-inch charge with them. I think that's statistically about right. So, whatever. But his cavalry did quite well. I deployed my army in 2 fire bases. One on the extreme left. Oh, we're playing on a 4x4 table. Normal dawn of war deployment. I deployed 2 fire bases, literally on one in the left-hand corner, one in the right-hand corner. And my opponent, each one, 30 conscripts bubble wrapping both infantry squads, the commissar and the commander. I got into a bit of my left-hand one, it's a picture of now, my left-hand one got into a real grind with his blob, because he had a blob of infantry, sort of 30 guys around his quartermaster, all giving them a 6-up in feel no pain. He was making good feel no pain saves. So my left-hand blob got into a real grind with his blob, and I think it could have gone either way, but I brought in my scions, and you can see where they are in the picture. I brought them in right in his backfield. I was tried deploying them in like 2 different teams. I thought, no, we'll make a nice big scion attack here. 20 scions dropped in. Cleared him off the objective. Mission was the scouring, by the way, but it quickly just evolved into who's going to murder the other one. Dropped in. They cleared an area. I just wanted them to do as much damage as possible. They blew up the Lehman Russ. Loads of other stuff. They put a huge target on them, saying, I'm here, I'm here. That forced my opponent to have to pull off a lot of his units to deal with them. He did eventually wipe nearly all the scions out. I think there was like 3, 4, maybe 5 survivors. Not a lot of survivors. Just trying to take on. I think he outnumbered me 2 to 1 throughout the whole fight. Every one that I killed, he'd kill one, kind of thing. But yeah, basically by the time he'd finished clearing off the scions, he had 10, 15 infantry left, and they turned around and they were facing down 60 or so of my infantry, because my left-hand group broke through with about 40 guys, broke through after grinding away with his 30 guys, grinding away with his infantry and some cavalry, and then my right flank, my conscripts were moving up. There were still about 20 conscripts left. But my right flank firebase, I actually had kind of a difficult time for it. They were constantly getting shelled by the Basilisk. They were getting shelled by the Lehman Russ. They received a charge of 2 Death Rider squadrons, and those things are nasty. Really, really, really nasty. Big respect for Death Rider squadrons now. And he basically killed all my infantry, and all I had left was after I'd finally lasgunned and bayoneted and counter-attacked and overwatched and just loads. It was a real back and forth. After the dust settled, he had cleared out that whole firebase apart from sort of 15, 20 conscripts, just using 10 or so Death Riders and some artillery support. So really, really good respect for that combination there. Soften them up with the artillery, send the cavalry in. Classic sort of Krieg World War One tactics, but that does not make them any less deadly. But yeah, I think it was a good game, but I think what it came down to, if we're going to analyse, we're going to learn, because you've got to learn from your victories, you've got to learn from your defeats, you've got to learn from your victories. 2-3 things I want to mention. Number one, wow, having Plasma back after this weekend's battle, which I would say this weekend's battle was one of the most frustrating, it's the most frustrating battle of 8th edition I've ever had. It was like having flashbacks to early days of 7th when I was trying to use grenade launchers for things. Going back to the go big or go home policy, guys, I'm never looking away from it again. They could make las cannons 30, 40 points for guardsmen. I'd still take them. As far as I'm concerned, it's las cannon, plasma gun. If you want to win, this was a tournament practice game, guys, so I had to bring my A game. My opponent thought he was bringing his A game. I think he did pretty good with what he had. Yeah, so las cannon, plasma guns, awesome. Second thing I want to shout out to it was his premiere debut, was the foot-slogging veteran squads. Wow. I did that theory video on them saying that they'd be a good fire support unit. Holy shit, were they a good fire support unit. After my veteran squad with triple plasma gun and a las cannon, first one opened up on a hellhound and did 8 wounds to it. 8 wounds. Overcharging plasma, 8 plasma gun shots, a las cannon shot at 8 wounds. That was nice. That was one squad doing that. Oh, that makes a big difference in the weekend when 10 squads couldn't do that. And the other squad on the other side did the same thing, a consistent 8 wounds to the Lehman Russ. They were a little bit luckier against the Lehman Russ. Obviously that's toughness 8, but yeah, really, really nice. When my opponent got on the receiving end of when they first opened up, his priorities quickly shifted and he started shelling hard my veteran squads. I think one of them got wiped out, one of them got down to about half strength, but it was once he realised how deadly they were, he prioritised them. But it was great. It meant that even though the veterans were doing a lot of damage, it meant that the regular guardsmen were able to just they were able to do plenty of damage, but they weren't quite as big a fire magnet, so that was nice. I think also the fact that I had a big distraction card effects, so to say, in his back lines with my scions, meant that he was sort of stuck to a rock and a hard place. Does he shoot the veterans which are coming at him down the left flank, just plasma gunning him away, or does he turn around and deal with scions which have also got plasma guns? Both sides are hitting on 3+. Which one does he go for? So it's really good that the scions took a lot of heat off my veterans, but even with that, the enemy still knew to target the veterans. Yeah, I thought that. So that's the second thing. Foot-slogging veterans, they're good. I think I'm going to be taking those from now on. I think my sort of standard platoon formation is going to be 30 conscripts, 10 infantry, 10 veterans, 10 scions. I think that's going to be quite modular, and that allows me to keep that 1-to-1 ratio we were speaking about before in one of my other videos. 1-to-1 ratio. I think it doesn't matter. For every conscript you have, you've got to have another kind of infantry. I think that's the best way of summing it up. It doesn't have to be an infantry squad. It can be veterans, it can be scions, it could be rattlings, it could be anything. But for every conscript you have, you need to have something that can put out, that can shoot good, that can do well. And I think that's a good rule, the 1-to-1. One conscript for one other infantry is a good rule. I think veterans and regular infantry squads worked really well side by side. They did well. They did a good job. Last thing I want to mention, first time using pure infantry. Oh, what a breath of fresh air! Absolutely, it was just felt natural. Felt like putting on a comfy old jumper. Felt like putting on a familiar pair of slippers. It felt fine. And I was relatively quick with my turns. I'd say me and my opponent were taking equal amount of times in our turns. He had no complaint. I asked him, do you have any complaints about my time? He had no complaints about my time. Because it was tournament practice, I wanted to ask that question. Yeah, no complaints. So that's good. Yeah, so they're the things I learned from my own army. Things to watch out, things for Krieg players and people who play against Krieg to look out for. Death Riders are good. If you are ever, they cost a lot of money, real money wise. But they are definitely worth it in terms of points on the table. If you can get an alternative Death Rider model, that's fine. If you can't, then all I can say is, if you're ever worried about Death Riders maybe not being worth it, definitely worth it. Really, really good. I was really impressed by them. What else did I learn about Krieg? Yeah, the Lemus Conqueror, that caught me out. He hit with his Stormbolt and then rerolled the hits on his Conqueror cannon. Wow, that caught me out. That leveled half a veteran squad, that did. Yeah, that was interesting. The Earthshaker carriage was cool. It was pretty cool. I didn't struggle killing it though. I just dropped a Plasma Command Squad, Scion Command Squad just killed it. So take from that what you will. Yeah. Krieg infantry squads. Well, Krieg Grenadiers are cool. I did notice a big difference between what his Grenadiers were able to do to me and what his infantry squads were able to do to me. Last thing I want to say, Krieg infantry squads are kind of interesting, and I feel like they're a bit schizophrenic because they've got weapon skill 3+, so that encourages you to charge in with them. But when my opponent charged in against my Scions, and Scions aren't close combat troops in any way, shape or form, it was a bit of a wet noodle fest. Considering these are guardsmen that are meant to be good at close combat, they're meant to be getting there, bayonet them down, overrun, let's get the next wave in there. They were a bit of a wet noodle fest. He'd charge in with the squad, and I was expecting to pick up 20 attacks, and he was like, oh, here's 10 attacks plus the sergeant, 11 attacks. And I was like, what? That's it? So he hit on 3s, it's like, okay, you've hit with like 7 attacks, great. You've got no rerolls. You haven't got anything that allows you to reroll to hit in close combat. We're not Space Marines, we don't have chaplains. So that was just sort of 7 or 8 hits, and then he'd roll to wounds. He was only wounding me on 4, so it's like, and against Marines, I'd imagine he'd be winning on 5s. It's like, oh, four saves. I was like, oh, well, I'll definitely take that. And I rolled my dice and passed like 2 out of 4 saves. It was like, oh, okay. And my Scions hit back and killed 2 Kriegsmen. And it's like, well, I don't know. Like it was a bit of a grind. Like both sides just slapping each other with these wet noodles, and maybe I'm so used to when I get hit as a guardsman or when I'm using conscripts, when my conscripts get hit by something in combat, they just evaporate. Getting charged by some Krieg Marines just didn't bother me. After I was more worried psychologically than I was gameplay wise. Death Riders on the other hand fucking kick ass. I noticed it when Death Rider charged me, because they hit on 3s, they wound on 3s, and I don't get a save, and they've got like 2 or 3 attacks each, and then the horses have got like 2 attacks, and then it's just crazy. So yeah, Death Riders are definitely a potent melee unit. Krieg Infantry, I'm not so sure. So for you Krieg commanders out there, please comment what my opponent could have done better, what loadouts you prefer on your Krieg squads. I think he would have done well having some power swords in there, helping him get through my Scion armour. But yeah, and just you tell me, does mass infantry wave Krieg work? Does throwing 100 guardsmen at someone and bayoneting them down, does it work? I mean, my opponent only had 40 or 50, so maybe that wasn't enough. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope the Imperial Guard players have learned some things and picked up some things that I learned. Plasma, Las Cannon, Veteran Squads are amazing. That's what I want to say. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.